How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Ches, Daf 18 of Masechta BavaMetzia, friends. Yo, friends. Well, let me tell you, it's BavaMetzia. Let me tell you. I don't even know what I'm up to, man. Oy, boy. Alright, here we go. Alright, we're starting at the Mishnah, honestly more than halfway through Yud Ches Amud Aleph. So that's pretty promising. Maybe that means it won't be such a long daf. We've been having like an insane amount of really long dafs. Alright, what can I tell you? This is what we signed up for. This is par for the course. It's what we're looking for. It's what we want. Says the Mishnah. Oh man. Oh yeah, you gotta get into the Babylon Talmud mindset. Oh yeah. That means gotta get your brain out. I have a shtickle headache. Maybe I should take like Tylenol. No, not Tylenol. Advil. All right, it's gonna be that kind of a day. Okay, Beseder. Okay, beseder. Okay, fine. So again, Motza Gitei Noshim. Okay, beseder. So a guy finds Gitei Noshim. Somebody finds a get. Okay, it says Reuven divorced Sarah. So, V'shechuri Avadim, or a document that says that so and so has emancipated his Eved. Do you say that? Is that like? Is that the way that it goes, or? Daitike, a will, like a tzavo shchivmira, a will. Matone, a gift document, shovrin, or a receipt. How is it lo yachzer? You don't return them. Shani omer, because I'll say ksuvin that they were written, but they changed their mind not to give them. So let's take as an example the get, especially because that's basically going to be the focus of today's daf, is the get. If you find the get on the floor and it says that Shimon divorced his wife, you don't give it to her. Meaning the assumption would be, okay, I found Sarah's get, I should give it back to her. No, we don't give it back to her because we're concerned that maybe Reuven wrote it, but then he changed his mind and says, you know what, I want to remain married. So maybe Taka never gave it to her. So therefore, we do not return it. We do not give it to her. Fine. Now, as I said, the sugya of the get is going to be the focus of today's daf. You ready? Let's do it. I think that we got up to, yeah. Okay. Says the Gemara, okay, so the only concern here, says the Gemara, is that maybe he changed his mind, right? That maybe he wrote the get, he was going to give it to his wife, but then everything kind of turned around and so he changed his mind and they're not going to get divorced, so therefore don't give it to her. That implies, however, if he said, no, that is definitely a very real get, you can give it to her. So then we give it to her. Even if it's much later. Now I guess it sounds like what we're assuming here is that meaning yeah, I think even if they weren't like actually divorced yet, right? Yeah, let's say that. Okay, so meaning you find this document, you find this get on the floor, okay, and it says that Reuven divorced his wife Sarah, and you say, hey Reuven, like is this so? Should I give it to Sarah? Like is this I think the point is that she may not already be divorced. Yeah, well I guess that if she was already divorced, then I guess who really cares? Right. The whole concern is that maybe he changed his mind not to get divorced. But anyways, if you find it and he says, no, give it to my wife, divorce her. So we would give it to her. Okay, so that implies that basically it would be a valid get, meaning you would be able to give this, I guess, act as his shaliach to give it to her, and she'd now be divorced with this get that you found on the floor. Even if, this, you found it much later. Okay? So again, time of the nimlach shlo litnon, the only reason why you wouldn't give it to her is because maybe Taka changed his mind and doesn't want to give it to her. But if he says, no, give it to her, then we give it to her and she would be divorced. Even if you find the get much later. I don't know, it got lost and you found it 2 months later, whatever it is. But we have a contradiction. We have a Mishnah in Masechta Gittin that says, get, if a person is a shaliach to bring a get, ve'avad, and it got lost. V'avad emenu, the shaliach lost it. Mitzvah la'alter, if he finds it immediately, kosher. So then, he found it immediately. Okay, quick save, and he can still deliver it to her. Imlav, but if he did not find it immediately, posel. You can't use it. Amar says Rabbi Lokasha, it's no problem. So it depends. If it's a place, so for example, Ruvain from Tel Aviv is divorcing his wife Sarah. Okay, and Sarah, I guess, is now in Yerushalayim, and the shaliach is bringing the get from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim. So if it's a place where there's moniot sherut going all the time from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, well, then you have to be concerned that, so then so that's the Mishnah that says if he finds it immediately, so then he can give it to her. But if he doesn't find it immediately, and there's enough time that another sherut could have come from Tel Aviv delivering another get, and maybe you found somebody else's get where it says that Reuven from Tel Aviv is divorcing his wife Sarah. There could be more than one couple in Tel Aviv, Reuven and Sarah. So therefore, if it's a place where there are caravans going, transportation, whatever, going between them, and therefore it's plausible that that if you find the get later on, it might taka be somebody else's get. Well, yeah, then it'll be a problem, and only if you find it immediately would it still be acceptable. But later on, you'd have to be concerned it's maybe somebody else's get. But if it's b'makom she'ena shayaris mitzuyis, but if it's a place where the caravans are not going, so therefore there isn't practically a concern that it's going to be somebody else's get, right? No other Reuven from Tel Aviv could have gotten there. So then we say it's okay. Okay, fine. Fafilu, right, and that's our Mishnah, right? When our Mishnah says that if the husband says to give it, you give it, so that's in a place where there are no shayaris, there are no caravans going, and therefore, there's only one Reuven who's going to be divorcing his wife, and you can give it to her. Okay, fine. And even in the scenario where there are where there's transportation going back and forth, and that so long as, so how about this for the rest of the daf, instead of using Ruvain as the husband, we're going to call him Yosef ben Shimon, right? So that is only, so when we say that if there's transportation going back and forth, it's a problem. That's only as long as we know that there is more than one Yosef ben Shimon. One, right, again, we're not using the name Reuven for the husband, we're using the name Yosef ben Shimon as the husband. So if we know that there's more than one Yosef ben Shimon in Tel Aviv, okay, so then we have to be concerned. If we're not, right, if as far as we know there's only one Yosef ben Shimon in Tel Aviv, well then there really isn't anything to be concerned about. And if you don't say that there is such a distinction, that Rabbah makes this distinction that even when it's a place with a Shayaris HaMitzuyas, there's nonetheless a distinction between if there is more than one Yosef ben Shimon or not. If you don't make such a distinction, Kasha de Rabbah ad Rabbah, well then Rabbah contradicts himself. Because there was a get that was found in the Bezdin of Rav Huna. We've seen this before. To have a kosuv b'shvirei mata, that in the place called Shvirei, that was on the river of Rochis, there was a get. A guy named Yosef ben Shimon divorced his wife. Amar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna, Chashinin l'shnei shvire, you have to be concerned that maybe there are two places named shvire. V'amar Rav Chizda l'Rabbe, and says Rav Chizda to Rabbe, poke ayin ba Rabba, go and research the subject. Dila orta be'i minach Rav Huna, because in the evening Rav Huna is going to ask you about this topic. Nafagdog ve'ashkach, and Rabba went out and he found the Tanan that we learned in the Mishnah called Maisei Bezdin Hareza Yachzer. It's a Mishnah that we're going to learn in 2 days from now in Daf Chof, that Kol Maisei Bezdin Hareza Yachzer, that any Maisei Bezdin, like we learned about yesterday, for example, Monim Mosayim, right, the payment of the ksube of right is a 1 second. And I assume the point is that it's referring to Gitin Nashon. Wait, what? 1 second. I know. So this is not referring to Tanai Bezdin. No, this is not referring to Tanai Bezdin. This is talking about. It says Rashi, "Kol Ma'aseh Bezdin Arei Yasser, Kol Milsa also the Bezdin the Kayim." That if it was Mekuyim, okay, and this get was Mekuyim and Bezdin, so therefore we know that there's no issue of Nimlach, so therefore you would be able to return it. Interesting that there's like a bunch of different ways to understand Maaseh Bezdin. Okay, so therefore Be'etzem, Rabbi is saying that you can rely upon this get. V'ha be'dina de Rav Huna d'chimakom she'ashayaris mitzuyas dami. So now here's the interesting thing. Rav Huna's Bezdin, there were people coming to and fro all the time. Therefore, Memele, Rav Huna's Bezdin is considered like a place of Makom Shashayaris Mitzuyas. V'kaposhit Rabba D'Yachzir, and Rabba saying that it can be returned. So, interesting, Rabba had said a few lines earlier that when we say that only if he finds it immediately can he use the get, but later on he can not use the get because it's a makom she'ashayaris mitzuyas. Yet over here, Rav Huna's Bezdin is a makom she'ashayaris mitzuyas, and Rabba is saying that the get is admissible. I think that's what I was looking for. So Alma, so we see ihuchzugu shnei Yosef ben Shimon in lo that. Even that when Rabba makes this distinction between a makom she'ashayaris mitzuyos and makom she'ena ashayaris mitzuyos, but really, okay, let me say this differently. That when Rabba says that if it's a makom she'ashayaris mitzuyos, you have to be concerned about Shnei Yosef and Shimon, it's only so long as we know that there are, in fact, 2 Yosef and Shimons in Tel Aviv. But if we don't know that, so then it would be acceptable. Avad Rabba Uvda Bei Kitone de Pumpedisa Kishmaite, and Rabba Paskin Take in the flax place of Pumpedisa like this halacha. And what does it mean? So you could those who say Heichad Mizabne Kitano. So those who say that this flax place is a place where they trade flax, where they do business in flax, and therefore the shayaris mitzuyas, people coming to and fro. And he's saying as long as there are no chazaka of Shnei Yosef and Shimon, it would be kosher, right? And even though there are caravans coming to and fro because it's a place of trade, nonetheless, so long as there's no chazaka that there are 2 Yosef and Shimons, so then the get would be acceptable. V'ikad amri, that those who say heicha de taru kitana v'afagav deuchzuku tilo shchicha shayaris. Those who say that this flax place is not a place where they trade flax, but where they process flax, where they soak flax. It is not a very pleasant place to be. It smells pretty bad, like the makolet near my house. And, wow. Oops. I noticed that makolet smells really bad recently. Oops. Wait, what? Oh my gosh. Oops. Wait, what was I talking about? Soaking flax. Yeah, I guess it's makolet. It sounds like maybe it smells like they were soaking flax in there. I don't know what's going on. What, maybe like the owners that makolet are in Miluim. I feel like there's been like shady situation. It's been smelling really bad, and they like don't have any like products. like never have what I'm looking for anymore. I went in there today and they were like cleaning out the fridge and it's like a humongous car. I don't know what's going on. That used to be a good makola. I don't know what happened to it. It smells bad now. But I won't tell you which makol it is, and let's go weiter. So the place where they soak flax, so then the place where they soak flax, so that's not a place where there's lots of people coming and going because it's not a very pleasant place. So there, even if there are more than one, even there's a chazaka of more than one Yosef ben Shimon, it's okay because there isn't going to be more than one, like caravan that's coming. So if you find it, it's for sure the one that you lost. Okay. Reb Zera Rami Masnisin a Braise. Wait, let me switch the video one second. Reb Zera Rami Masnisin a Braise. Aha. So Reb Zera asked a kasha in the Mishnah in Gittin, right, where it required that the get be found immediately, but not later on. He asked a kasha from Braise. Mishani, and he answers it. Tanan. We learned in our Mishnah that we quote, well, not our Mishnah, but the Mishnah that we had mentioned earlier from Gittin, Hamevi get, that if a fellow brings a get, the Avadi menu, and it gets lost, Mitzol altar, if he finds it immediately, kosher. Vim lab, pasul. If he doesn't find it immediately, so then it is pasul. If he doesn't find it immediately, he has to find it immediately. But we have a contradiction. Matzah get isha bashuk. Okay. If a fellow, we have a brisa that says, a fellow finds a get in Shuk Machne Yehuda, Bizman Shabal Mode Yachzil Isha. Okay, so if the Baal says, I know, that is my wife's get. Okay, so you give it to her. Ain Abal Mode, but if the husband says, no, I don't know what this is, you found a piece of paper in Shuk Machne Yehuda, it's not, no, it's fake. Lo yachzir, do not return it lolozeh to neither one of them. Katonim yes, bizman shabal mo de yachzir liishav afilu zman ruba ho. But what do we see? We say, okay, but as long as the husband says, yes, this is my wife's get, you can give it to her, so we give it to her, even if you found it much later on, and we're not concerned, that it belongs to different Yosef ben Shimon. Umishane, we answer, and he answers, Kan b'makom she'ashe'aris mitzuyis, v'chan b'makom she'en ashe'aris mitzuyis. And he answers, okay, when we said that you have to find it immediately, it's because it's b'makom she'ashe'aris mitzuyis. When we say that, as long as he says, give it to my wife, you give it to his wife, even if it's later on, that's makom she'en ashe'aris mitzuyis. Okay, now, givaldik. So, Reb Yirmiyah makes that same distinction, seemingly, that if it's makom shashayaris mitzuyis, so then you have to be concerned about Shnei Yosef ben Shimon. Okay, now what if there's no chazaka that there are two Yosef ben Shimons? What then? Right? Rabbah had said that if we have a chazaka that there's right, if we don't have a chazaka that there's multiple Yosef ben Shimons, so then you could still use the get, right? So you could amri v'hu she'uchziku did v'hu she'uchziku, right? There are those who say that if you find the get later on in a makom she'ashe'aris mitzuyis, you can't use it. That is only when there's a chazaka that there are multiple Yosef ben Shimons. D'lo nahader, that in that case we cannot give it to her. Behind the Rabbah, that's like Rabbah who makes the distinction. Amri afal gav lo huchziku lo nehader. Those who say that even though there's no chazaka that there are multiple Yosef ben Shimons, nonetheless do not give it to her. Ufliga de Rabbah, and he argues with Rabbah because Rabbah would say if we don't have the chazaka, you can give it to her. Rabbi Yirmiyah says even in that case you cannot give it to her. Now, Bishlama l'Rabbah, Chaver, listen up to this kasha. Lo amar kirab zera masnisin alima le lakshuye. Chaver. I understand Rabbah's question. Rabbah asked a question on the Mishnah from another Mishnah, right? We have the Mishnah in Gittin that says that you have to find it immediately, and if you find it later on, you can't give it to her. And we have a Mishnah here in Masechta BavaMetzia that says that if the husband says give it to her, you give it to her even if it's later on. And then we said, okay, it depends if it's makom she'ashe'aris mitzuyis. So Rabbah was asking on a question on a Mishnah from another Mishnah. But El Reb Zera, my time lo Amar Kirabba. Why doesn't he say like Rabba? Right? Reb Zera is asking kasha on a Mishnah from a Brisa. Brises are weaker than Mishnayos. If Brises were so awesome, Rebbe would have surely included them in the Mishnayos, right? Meaning there's like levels of Brises, right? There's like a hierarchy, right? The highest level of like Tanaitic like stuff is Mishnayos, right? Like the creme de la creme is what Rebbe included and edited into the Mishnayos. Then there's like the Tosefta. The Tosefta was organized by Reb Chia and Reb Oshaya, I believe. So that's like the next best. It's like the Tosefta, right? A Tosefta is better than, okay. So a Mishnah is better than a Tosefta, and then there's like just random brises that like are just they're like the least authoritative. So now the question is, okay, I understand Rabbah as a kasha on a Mishnah from another Mishnah. Why would Reb Zera prefer to ask a kasha on the Mishnah from a Brisa? Why not hold like Rabbah that we're asking a kasha on a Mishnah from a Mishnah? So Amalach, because Reb Zera will respond to you, Mi Tani Ha'omar Tnunosnin Vafilizman Meruba. There's a lot of reading into our Mishnah in BavaMetzia that we have to do, right? Meaning the Mishnah Gittin said that he has to find the get immediately, but if it's later on, then it's a problem. Now, all our Mishnah in BavaMetzia says is that if you find a get, you can't give it to the wife because we're concerned maybe he changed his mind. And we say, implying that if he says, right, so the implication being that if he says give it, you give it. That's implication number one. And then implication number two is that, and even if it's been a long time, right? So there's like a lot, I think this is how I understand, this is how I'm understanding, I hope I'm understanding it correctly, that there's like a lot of reading into it that we have to do, right? It says, again, Amalach, Reb Zera will say to you, Mikatoni ha'omer tenu nosnin va'afil lachar zman va'afil zman ruba. It doesn't say in the Mishnah, all it says in the Mishnah is you don't give it to the wife because we're concerned maybe he changed his mind, from which we imply, but if he says give it, you give it, and even if it's much later. Dilma ha'amar tenu nosnin ulolim kidikayim lan la'alter. Maybe the implication is, yeah, you can't give it to her because we're concerned that maybe he changed his mind, implying that if he says give it, you give it, sure. But maybe we're saying that, but if he says give it, you give it immediately, not later on. So therefore he prefers to hold like therefore I prefer to ask the kasha on the brisa, which says explicitly that if the husband says, yeah, you know, it's my wife's get, so then we're saying, yeah, that you give it to her, and you know, there's no limitations on your giving it to her. So therefore, Reb Zera felt that the question was more direct, coming from the brisa rather than from the Mishnah above Metzia. L'man da'amar li Reb Zera b'makom she'ashayoris mitzuyis v'afal gav shelo huchzeku shnei Yosef ben Shimon ufliga de Rabba b'maikum mifligay. Now, according to the opinion who says that while Rabba makes a distinction in the scenario where there are caravans coming to and fro, that Rabba makes a distinction between, well, if there's two Yosef ben Shimons, then we have to be concerned. If there's no chazaka that there's multiple Yosef ben Shimons, then there's nothing to be concerned about. Now, there was one opinion that says that Reb Zera agrees with Rabba. I hope I haven't been saying Reb Yirmiyah, because Reb Yirmiyah is coming up. If I've been saying Reb Yirmiyah, it's a mistake. Reb Yirmiyah is coming up. This is Reb Zera arguing on Rabba right now. I'm sorry if I've been saying Reb Yirmiyah. So according to one opinion, Reb Zera agrees with that distinction of Rabba. According to the other opinion, Reb Zera disagrees with Rabba and says that even if there is no chazaka of multiple Yosef ben Shimons, still you cannot give the get to the wife. So what's the machlokas between Rabba and Reb Zera? Rabba savar dikatone kol ma'aseh bezdin harei yachzir. That Rabba says that when it says kol ma'aseh bezdin, any of these gittin, any document that's been mekuyim in bezdin yachzir, you give it. The ishtikach bebezdin askinon. It's talking about where it's found in bezdin. Uvezdin k'makom shasharos mitzuyos. And Bezdin is a place, Shayaros Mitzuyas, that people are coming in and out, and there's lots of people around, and we're saying still, you can give it to her. So we see that there is a scenario where even B'makom Shayaros Mitzuyas, that you can give her the get. V'usheuchzeku Wait, what? Oh, lo yachzer. And if there are chazaka of multiple Yosef and Shimon's, don't give it back to her. Lo uchziku yachzer. But if there's no chazaka, you can give it back. So meaning even b'makom shashayaris mitzuyas, it depends. If there's a chazaka of multiple Yosef and Shimon's, don't give it to her. If there's no chazaka, give it to her. Bit seder. Reb Zera Omar Loch. Reb Zera says Mikatani kol ma'aseh bezdin shenimtu bi bezdin. It doesn't say. Interesting. Reb Zera is being like very medayik, which is givaldik. And we're saying, look, it doesn't say that any ma'aseh bezdin that you dafka find in bezdin, which is makom she'asharos mitzuros. It doesn't say that. Kol ma'aseh bezdin yachzer. Any document that's been mekuyib in bezdin, you return. But not necessarily if it's in, you find it in Bezdin, which is Makom Shasharis Mitzuris. No, there you wouldn't return it. Katani la'olam dishtika chavroi. Davka, if you find this document outside of Bezdin, which is not b'makom Shasharis Mitzuris, that's when you can return it. But Reb Zera would say, according to the opinion it says that he argues on Rabbah, that if it's b'makom Shasharis Mitzuris, then you would not return it to her ever. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar, says Rabbi Yirmiyah, Kigon de ka'amrei edimi olam lo chasamnu ela al get echad shel Yosef ben Shimon. Rabbi Yirmiyah explains our Mishnah that says that if the husband says, give the get to my wife, we give it. Shouldn't we be concerned that maybe it's somebody else's get? Well, it's talking about where the witnesses said, look, we've only ever, what are they saying? I'll get echad shel Yosef ben Shimon. Look, we've only ever signed on one get for Yosef ben Shimon. Right? Look, our signatures are on this document, and I'm telling you, we've only ever signed on one get for Yosef ben Shimon. If it would be impossible for there to be another get with our signatures for another Yosef ben Shimon, simply we've only been witnesses for one Yosef ben Shimon get. If this is our signatures, these are our signatures, and therefore this must be the get that you this get must be the get that you think it is. So Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar says, Rabbi Yirmiyah Kigon the ka'amrei edim, that the witnesses say, me'olam lo chasanu ela al get echad shel Yosef ben Shimon. Look, we've only ever signed on one get belonging to Yosef ben Shimon, and therefore this must be it. If that's the case, ma'ale memra. What's the chiddush? Obviously, we would give it back at that point. Well, these witnesses said that they've only ever signed on one get for Yosef ben Shimon. But maybe there's also taka another get for a different Yosef ben Shimon whose witnesses have the same names, right? Maybe, who are the witnesses on this get? Shimon and Levi. Maybe there's another Yosef ben Shimon who got divorced, and his witnesses were Shimon and Levi. What do you want me to tell you? So it could be that we'd be concerned that, while maybe these witnesses are saying that they never signed on another Yosef ben Shimon's get, but maybe there is another Yosef ben Shimon who it just happens to be that his witnesses are also the same name as the other witnesses. Mamish, it's like the same document. Maybe we should be concerned about that. Kamash Milan, that no. If they say that, if the witnesses says, look, this is our, right, this is the document that we signed, and it's for Yosef ben Shimon, and we've only ever signed one get for Yosef ben Shimon, so then we believe them. And we can give it to her. Fine. Rav Ashi Omar says, Rav Ashi Kigondi Ka Omar, that he says that the husband says, right, meaning they find the get, and the husband says, give it to my wife, and he says, look, Nekev Yeshbo B'tzad Os Plonis, that there was a hole next to a particular letter. He gave a siman muvak. He gave a very, very clear and specific sign that he knows that this is his get, the get, right, that he had written. Right, he says, look, if you look on this particular letter, there's a hole next to it. It's definitely my get. So, we're going to get into these sugis. I just started learning Perek BavaMetzia today. Okay, I'm still trying to size it up. BavaMetzia. It's like classic Shabbat classic. I'm only one daf into it. I'm telling you, I haven't learned BavaMetzia since I'm 10 years old or something like that, and if you call it learning. I'm very excited. I'm 36 years old right now. I haven't really learned BavaMetzia. It's just a little embarrassing. I was somewhere last summer, and there was a guy there. He was teaching his yingle BavaMetzia. The Maisa, how to learn BavaMetzia? I couldn't say epis. But now, the next time I see somebody learning Eilu Metzias with his Yingel, I can also be familiar with it, I can also learn. So I'm very curious to see how Eilu Metzias goes. So we're going to learn about Simonim and Yeush and things like that. So Kigon de Ka'omar Nekev Yeshbo Betzad Os Plonis. That the husband says, look, I'll tell you, there's a hole right next to a specific letter. Betzad Os Plonis. Specifically, if he gives a very specific siman muvak that can't be doubted. Haval neked ba'alma, but just if he says there was a hole in it, that's not enough. Low. Rav Ashi misapkele simonim midoraisi derabanan, because Rav Ashi he's not sure if the concept of a siman is midoraisi or midorabanan. Right? Does a siman work to identify midoraisi? Right? And therefore, if it's midoraisi, we could trust even yes, there's a hole in it, that would be enough. I believe that's shot. Even if there was a hole in it, that would be enough. Or is it only midirabanan? In which case, he would really need mamash a siman muvak for us to be undoubtedly sure in order to trust him. But just simply that there was a hole would not be enough. Rav Bar Bar Chana, irkis legito be midrash. Rav Bar Bar Chana lost a get that I guess he was a shaliach for in the Beis HaMedrash. Omar, he says, look, people, I'll tell you, right? And I guess they found it, but they needed him to give some kind of proof before they can give it back. He says, look, isimona isli begave. Look, if you want a siman, a sign, I'll give you a sign about the get. Itvius eina isli begave. Right? If you need me to simply just look at it and identify it and be able to say, yep, this is the get that I was bringing, I can do that too. And the Pasha gave it back to him. They didn't actually ask him to give a siman or to have a look at it. Omar, he says, I don't know, honestly, if they gave it back to me because or maybe Taka, the point is that he gave them both, maybe Taka, the point, wait, let me just look it up quick. Yeah, I think it's that he then, proceeded to give them the sign, and then I think he probably also looked at it and said, yes, this is it. I guess he probably did both, right? And then so they gave it back to him. Amr, he says, did they give it back to me because of the sign that I provided? Because Sabri Simona de Oraisa, because they hold that signs are Mido Oraisa, and that sign that I provided was enough. Oh, Mishum Tvias Eina Aju Niali, or if it's because I was able to look at it and say and confirm, yep, this is definitely the get that I brought. But that would dafka only work for a Talmud Chacham, because the assumption is that we could trust his integrity there, but we wouldn't just be able to do that for anybody. Friends, that was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta BavaMetzia. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.